So it's definitely one of my favorite shows. I mean, give them all the awards. The acting. Now, if I had to watch a show forever, it may be this one. Hey everybody, it's Harold, and I am going to review the new season of Sex Education that just dropped on Netflix this week. Now, I'm going to talk about the series as a whole first, and then I'm going to start getting into the season, and at that point, spoilers will come. So, let's get into it. So like I said, first I'll talk about the show as a whole, and then I'll get into the season and then really start talking about spoilers. First of all, I love the show. Point blank period. I love the show. Every single time it comes out, I watch the whole season in like a day or two, and then I'm just like, I have no more to watch. Hurry and give me another season, please. But I love the show, and I love it for several reasons. So first, I'll talk about why I like the show, and just talk about the show before I get into the season that just dropped. So for those who don't know or have never seen Sex Education, it's a show, as the title may suggest. It deals with learning about sex. It's about these group of kids that go to a high school somewhere in the UK, and they basically are trying to navigate their relationships and their bodies. And as most teenagers are, they're confused, and they live in a repressed school, and it's a shame for them to talk about certain things. And Otis, who is the son of a sex therapist, he sets up a secret sex clinic with his friends MAEVE, and they help people deal with their sexual issues and snafus, if you will. First of all, it is hilarious. The show is hilarious. The first season, every episode started off with some wacky, zany sex encounter that was always going to leave you cracking up, but then it would always open up into something deeper, and you would like learn about the character, and Otis and MAEVE would help them, and it was just a great premise. And it's an ensemble show with a bunch of different characters, which means there's a bunch of different opportunities for different storylines and different opportunities for different complex scenarios to play out. But I'll get into that later. So the first thing I love about the show is the depiction of teenagers and sex in this show. I know that may sound a little scandalous, but I feel like the sex that's being depicted here is very realistic for the age group. I feel like this show is one of the first ones where I'm like, okay, this was my high school experience. This was my friend's high school's experience. Oftentimes, you either have two extremes with teenagers and high school stories when it comes to sex. You either have it being way too adult or way too childish. You either have like perfect examples. Think of any show the CW has done. Gossip Girl, Riverdale. Those characters are basically hooking up like adults. You know, they are very sexually active. They know what they're doing. They're all hooking up with each other all the time. And it's just very like adult. Then you have shows that, you know, of course Disney, where it's like watered down and it doesn't come up at all. Like High School Musical. Sex never comes up in there. And it never will in a DCOM movie or anything Disney. It's never going to come up. So I feel like high school movies and TV shows, you're either living in a world where everything is hypersexualized and everyone are these very adult, healthy sex lives, or you live in a world where it doesn't come up at all, and this show is for young folks, so we're gonna live in a world where sex doesn't happen, especially for teenagers. And none of those worlds are really accurate to what it's actually like. I mean, every high schooler knows, that's probably nodding and being like, yeah, that's not what it's like. But Sex Education happens to really, really nail on the head what it's like, you know? Like, you have these teenagers who are having these sexual awakenings and sexual activity, but they don't know what they're doing, and it's hilarious. And it's funny because, like, you're either going through it or going to go through it, or you have gone through it. And it appeals to all those audiences, which is why it's funny, because, I mean, spoiler alert for those who may have not been sexually active, but like when you don't know what you're doing, it usually leads to some hilarious stories. Like people usually swap stories of these snafus, and the show just captures that energy very well. I remember being in high school, and I remember like some of my friends losing their virginity, and we would like talk about it, and they would be super embarrassed and be like, oh, this thing happened and I didn't know what I was doing. And this show just captures that really well. I'm not gonna go down that road too far because I don't want YouTube to take this down and say it's too explicit. But I think it's very interesting and realistic how the show deals with teenagers trying to find out who they are sexually and explore that avenue. I feel like it's very realistic. The other thing I think that is realistic that I love about the show is the diversity. Netflix is the queen right now of forced diversity. I feel like they know that people don't want to watch a show with a full white cast, and so they are like, we have to put brown people in everything. And you usually have like a token brown character that's like a stereotype or badly written, where they're using all these buzzwords and everything they say is hashtag BLM, which is fine because that's real life, but not really, because these characters have other things going on than their brown or black experience. But Netflix doesn't write brown characters like that in a lot of cases. So I love this show because the diversity doesn't feel forced, like, at all. It feels very real. It feels like what an actual school would look like. You have people of all different shades and complexions. And I just love it. Like, there are scenes where I realized, I'm like, wow, everyone on the screen right now is black. Like, when Cal and Jordan were having their conversation on the mountain, I was like, wow, this is like two black characters having a scene and nothing to do with the race. And I loved that. And then there's just, like the popular trio, they're diverse. Like, I just love how there's so much diversity and culture too, because not only are these characters POC, but they're bringing in different culture. Like Eric is from Nigeria, and we get to see a lot of that Nigerian culture, which I'll talk about later. And then you have characters from India and just all over the place, and they're bringing that culture with them, or from France, and it's just, it's awesome. I love the melting pot that the show is. So the third thing I love about the show is the complex characters. These characters, and it's so unassuming because it's a comedy and you're laughing and kikiing and ha-haing, and you don't think these characters are going to get as complex as they do. But I think that's because it's had 3 seasons, and they've had the luck of having enough time to really slowly dip our way into these characters. And they're like, okay, we got you guys laughing. You're laughing. And now we're going to slide in this serious tidbit of information about this character. And the next thing you know, you're crying. And they just do it so well. So from here on out, I am going to give spoilers. So if you have not seen season 3 of Sex Education and you care about spoilers, stop watching because things might slip. All right? You good? You gone? All right. So for those of you who are still here, let's talk season 3. All right. So would I say this was my favorite season of Sex Education? No. Did I still freaking love it? Yes. Love the show. So I'm going to break down basically the things I liked and didn't like about this season. So I'm going to start with my dislikes. The first thing I didn't like was the time being devoted to certain characters and storylines. They did add a bunch of new characters, so there was more time devoted to introducing them. But then there was also a lot of time spent on the adult. Like, I could not care less about Adam's dad. And we kept having so much time. I get it. They want us to show the cycle that's being broken in this family. Like, I get it. They're saying this show really did a lot of work redeeming Adam, which I will get into. They did a whole lot of work redeeming Adam. And I feel like they felt that part of that was explaining the journey of his family and the cycle of his family. And they started off by showing us, you know, his dad is a jerk, and they showed us why his dad was a jerk, and we didn't need that. Like, we got all that history about how his dad's brother was a jerk and how his dad's dad was like cruel to him. And we don't need all that information. We didn't need the information at all. So I felt that that was, you know, unnecessary. We didn't need to know why Adam's dad was a jerk. We just needed to know that Adam's dad was a jerk, and then we could understand why Adam was a jerk. We didn't need this whole chain of events. And I feel like that happened with a lot of people. We found out all this backstory about Jakob and his dead wife, and how his wife cheated. Like I said, I love the complex characters, and I love that we found out all these really interesting stuff, like Jakob having to find out that his wife cheated, but before he could get separate with her, she got sick and died, and then having to deal with that. Like, it's interesting, but let's save the interesting material for, like, the main characters, if you don't mind. Like, I didn't care about all the adults that much. The show's not about them, you know? I love Miss Wilburn. I love the sex therapist. And I like when things are about her. But Adam's dad, come on, y'all. Ain't nobody worried about Adam's dad. At all. So speaking of Adam and my dislikes, a lot of my other dislikes have to do with him. I'm sorry for the people who really like him and stan him, but that's what my other dislikes are about. Don't get me wrong, I like Adam, but I didn't like some of the things about his character. I don't like Adam's humor or the jokes they make via Adam. It makes me question why Eric is with them, because Eric is like witty and charming, and like, I'm not gonna lie, I project on Eric. Eric reminds me a lot of myself in high school, so of course I project on him. And I'm just always like, what do you see in Adam when he does stuff like that? Like, I would be like, the scene where he's like scratching his crotch and he's like, I'm chafing, and Eric is like, don't do that in public. Like, I couldn't. I don't understand their relationship. I don't understand. Well, I understand their relationship, but every time something like that happened, I'd be like, Eric, why are you with this guy? When they were on the double date, and the first thing he said was,
does anyone else like the smell of their own farts?
That's nasty. Adam was a pretty cool character this season, which I'm going to talk about more in my likes. I just disliked every time he was like that. And I was like, why is Eric with him? It makes absolutely no sense. Like, this is embarrassing. And I feel like Eric would be like, you're embarrassing me. Or how he would drip the jelly and stuff down his shirt.
Yeah.
Like, I get that that was part of his character, but like, I don't know. It felt like a lot. I'm like, is a high schooler really like this? I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are some boys that were acting like that. But I didn't associate with them. And again, Eric reminds me a lot of me. And I know if anyone was doing any of that in public, I'd be like, ew, you're embarrassing me. But that aside. Also, this is kind of nitpicky, but I don't really like how Adam's character, like, depends so much on brown people. I feel like so many black people have to swoop in and be like, oh, let me give you advice, or let me help mold your character. Or I feel like Adam has, like, transcended in levels, and I feel like it's completely due to the brown people around him. I feel like it really it leans into the magical black Negro trope, if you haven't heard that, but that's just basically characters that come in and swoop in and help white characters with their problems, and I feel like a lot of that happened. That aside, I didn't really like what was going on with Rahim in this season. I feel like the writers are like, okay, we brought him on the show to be a love interest for Eric, and now he's not, so let's give him something. So it felt like they were just kind of throwing him a bone. Every time he popped up, it felt like the writers were like, oh, crap, we forgot about Rahim, let's add him back into the story. And I didn't like the headmistress character either. Her whole storyline was very predictable, and she felt like a villain out of a Disney show. It felt like she could have been in High School Musical. I didn't really like any of that. It felt very on the nose. Didn't feel as creative as the rest of the series does. So I didn't really like her. Let's get into what I liked. I loved the relationships. I love how complex they are. I feel like in teen shows, they always try to make all the relationships very like cut and dry, very black and white, very I broke up with you because you cheated, but this was so complex. Adam and Eric's relationship, first of all, when they first started dating, I hated it. I was so mad that Eric was breaking up with Raheem to date this white boy who's been bullying him and beating him up. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. So I was very surprised that they made me invest in their relationship. The characters like were cute together and I was like rooting for them. And then when they broke up, I felt sad. But at the same time, I agreed that they should be breaking up. Like, that is good writing. I completely understood why Eric was breaking up with Adam, and I understood why Adam didn't want to break up, and I felt bad for both of them and understood them both. Like, that's good writing. But I completely understood that Eric felt like he couldn't fly the way he wanted to because Adam was just now coming out of the closet. Like, it was just good writing, and I understood why Eric kissed someone else while he was in Nigeria, and I understood why he wasn't sorry for it. Like, that's good writing. And you don't really see complexities like that in things for teenagers because they kind of water things down for teenagers. But that was so complex, and I loved it. Maeve and Otis's will they or won't they, how it's just never working out for them. And how Maeve is like, I don't really know who to pick. Yeah, like, I found out you were into me, but like, now I'm into someone else. I'm into two people at once. Like, the relationships in this show are very good. 10 out of 10, I love the relationships. That's what brings me to this show, honestly. That's what keeps me. I love AIMEE and Maeve's relationship, speaking of. I love how they came together at the end and said we're going to be each other's moms. Love that. I absolutely love that. I love the girl power. I love how they're there for each other. I love how they had the fight and then I love how they made up because I feel like that's how friends really are, where you're just like, okay, let's stop fighting. I'm sorry. I was mad. I took the time I needed to be mad. Let's be fine again. I was so afraid that Maeve was going to tell Otis, I'm staying and not going on this important trip because I am in love with you. And he was going to be like, no, you should go and worry about your future. I'm so glad it wasn't a man who told her that. I'm so glad it was AIMEE. And homegirl was like, girl, if I was giving up this opportunity for a boy, you beat my ass. And I don't know if I can say that. You beat me. I'm not going to let you throw away this opportunity too. I loved that. Girl power. Loved the Nigerian episode. Loved the culture. I loved everything that was like said in there. I loved everything we learned. Loved that episode. Loved the Nigerian episode. I loved everything we got to see. I loved getting to see Eric's character flourish. I love how the POC characters have storylines that are independent of the white counterparts. Because often in a show like this, since Eric is the main white protagonist's best friend, he would not have anything that is separate from Otis. And I love how he had a whole storyline this whole season. He was there when Otis needed him, yes, but he had a whole storyline that was independent from Otis. And I love that. And I love getting to see him go back to his culture. I loved him I love getting to see what the queer experience is like in other countries. Like, I just thought that was awesome. I love Maeve and the mom. I know some people didn't like it, but I love Maeve and her mom. I love that whole dynamic. I understand it. I understand having, like, parents that aren't perfect and, like, having to grow up early and having to, like, be aware of things and make decisions. And I just love when Maeve was like, you think this is easy for me? I'm 17. I shouldn't be worried about any of this. I like really get that. And I just really appreciated seeing it. And I really loved it. All that to say, as soon as this was over, I was practically on my knees begging for a fourth season. I hope we get one. I feel like the fourth season will be the last because they only have one more semester before they graduate. So we shall see. But that is my opinion on the new season of Sex Education. Did you guys like it? I give it a 4.5 out of 5. It wasn't perfect like the other seasons, but I still loved it. So let me know what you guys thought of the new season in the comments. Are you excited for season 4? Do you want there to be one? Let me know, and I will talk to you guys later.